combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're here with another episode of your favorite show. It's called Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, by the way, and the way it works is we start off on Instagram Live. So that's where I am right now on Instagram Live. Go follow me at Livin' Low Carb Man. And all these wonderful people coming in live to my Instagram Live that will interact with me here in just a minute. Then it's up on Instagram for 24 hours on replay. Then we pop it over onto YouTube, where you can watch all of the past Jimmy Rants, because unfortunately Instagram, it disappears after 24 hours and it's gone forever. Well, we house the video over on YouTube. And then we also have a brand new podcast where we air snippets from the best of these Jimmy Rants. So go check it all out right now, JimmyRants.com. And today's rant, you guys, I have a good one for you, because a lot of people talk about keto and they talk about the macronutrients and making sure that you get the right amount of carbohydrates, and the right amount of protein, the right amount of fat. And you've even heard me talk about, you know, keeping your carbs low to your tolerance level and keeping your protein moderated to your personal threshold level, then eating fat to satiety. And all of those things still hold true, and they need to be in place in order for keto to do what it does. But did you know that being keto is about so much more than just your diet? So it's not all about the food that you're putting in your mouth that determines whether or not you're in a state of nutritional ketosis. So far too many people, they start on a ketogenic approach and they obsess so much about the macronutrients that they forget about all these other factors that I'm going to talk about here today that aren't even related to the food or anything regarding your diet, and yet they have such a profound impact on your level of ketones, okay? So, the first one I want to tell you about that has nothing to do with your diet but affects your ketosis is sleep. So whether you realize it or not, sleep is critical to making sure you have adequate levels of ketones in your body. Because if you miss one night of sleep, one night of really good, restful, restorative sleep, and again, I use a little ring. Go to biohackingring.com if you want to get this ring. But this ring, it connects to my smartphone, and it allows me to track the 4 stages of sleep. So I can see when I'm in deep sleep, I can see how much REM sleep, those are the restorative, those two types of sleep. And if I'm getting enough sleep, then I know my body is probably going to be primed for when I do feed it the keto food to put my body into an optimal state of fat burning and nutritional ketosis. So if your sleep is off, all it takes, you guys, a lot of studies have shown this, but all it takes is one night of bad sleep, and it can actually lead to your body responding with signs of insulin resistance. One night. So if you had a bad night's sleep, yeah, you could probably mitigate it by recovering with several nights of really good sleep in a row afterwards. But that day that you had the bad night's sleep, the next day, you're gonna be hungrier. Your ketones are gonna be in the toilet, because you basically, by not getting enough sleep, hormonally, it was the equivalent of eating a big old bolus of crappy garbage, because your body responded in a negative way in your blood sugar. And when blood sugar goes higher, what happens to your blood ketones? They go down. And so when the blood ketones go down, the satiating effects of a ketogenic diet go away and you're hungrier. Again, you could be eating the most perfect diet with keto, but if you have one bad night of sleep, it could impact your level of ketosis. Nothing to do with your diet at all, and yet sleep is that critical to making keto work. Another biggie that is somewhat tied to sleep, but is a totally different thing, is stress. So how many of us live with kind of chronic stress all the time? And I have to talk to Christine about this quite often, because she'll see people, for example, talking about me online. She's like, did you see what they said? And she'd just be all, "Rrr." And then I'm like, can you chill out, because you're stressing me out now. So, but stress, you guys, can play the same kind of effect that lack of sleep does. And so when you're stressed and when your body is under stress, it shifts your body from what's called a parasympathetic state, parasympathetic, meaning relaxed and chilled, over to a sympathetic state, which is really uptight, stressed, worried. And when you're in the sympathetic state, a lot of people don't realize this, but none of the body's processes can function as intended. Your hormones will shift to try to deal with that sympathetic state. Your blood sugar will go up, your insulin levels will go up. All of these metabolic health factors kick in simply because you've allowed your body to get into this sympathetic state from whatever life struggle has happened. So if the boss is yelling at you at work, if the kids are screaming and fighting with each other, if you just have some sort of stressor, or you're reading the internet, pretty much any part of the internet these days will do that, it's going to stress you. And that stress, you guys, will impact your ketones. I don't think people give enough credence to these lifestyle factors having such an impact on what they're doing in their diet. They just think, oh, I'm eating low carb, high fat, I should therefore just be losing lots of weight, and all my woes in my health and life should get better. And that's unrealistic. I just wish there was some way to communicate this a little clearer to people, because they go keto and they don't have all these other issues under control, like a lack of sleep, like having stress that's unresolved. And when I say stress, we all have kind of day-to-day stressors. I'm talking about chronic stress that you sit there and dwell on, and you know who you people are that do that. Don't do that, by the way. Let it go, because your body is responding in a very negative way. If you want to kind of see where you are on the parasympathetic versus sympathetic, get yourself a heart rate variability monitor. There's one called a Polar 8.7, and if you get the Polar 8.7, you basically have this strap that goes around your chest, and again, it connects with an app. The app that I like to use is called Elite HRV. It's a free app. I want to say the chest strap is something like $70, but it will show you whether you're in that sympathetic state or you're in that parasympathetic state. And if you're in the sympathetic state, maybe you need to fast until you get into the parasympathetic state, because your body can't fully digest the foods that you do eat. Again, if it's the most pristine ketogenic meals that you can possibly come up with, and you're in a sympathetic state because you're stressed, your body's not going to respond well to that. So that could be another saboteur as to why being keto is so much more than just your diet. That stress plays such a big impact. Another thing that people don't consider is medications. Do you take medications? And again, we all go see the doctor, and the doctor tells us, well, you need to take this medication for this condition that you have. And what you may not realize is that medication could mess with the metabolic pathway that helps you produce ketones. And it may actually contribute to weight gain. I wrote a book earlier this year with Dr. Adam Nally, who's a ketogenic physician, and he talked about in there all of the drugs that can impact your level of blood sugar, and thus your blood ketones, and also your weight, that can put on weight. And so be aware of that, that even some medications that you take, again, nothing to do with your diet, and yet it can have a direct impact on your ability to be keto. Hormonal imbalances. So this is a big one, guys. A lot of people deal with adrenal fatigue. A lot of people have insulin resistance. A good many people also have some kind of hypothyroidism that's going on, whether it's the autoimmune kind called Hashimoto's or just general hypothyroidism. All of those things too can impact your ability to be in a state of nutritional ketosis. So I hope this is eye-opening for so many people, because people start on a ketogenic diet because they're not feeling well. Maybe they're under stress. Maybe they're not sleeping well. Maybe they're taking medications that don't make them feel good. Maybe their hormones are out of balance and they think, oh, let me change my diet and that alone will fix all of my woes. And then they start on a ketogenic diet and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel any better at all. That keto doesn't work. Not realizing that it's all those underlying issues, first and foremost, that made the keto not work. And you got to get those things under control in order for keto to do what it's going to do. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about keto being about so much more than simply just the food that you're putting in your mouth. Let's see what you guys have to say. I need a ring to give me an electric shock if I don't get off my phone and go to bed. Well, leave your phone in the other room, Nancy, and that's all the electric shock that you'll need. Renee Run says, keto has helped my insomnia. Been a bad sleeper since 6 months, and I'm 43 now. Finally, I'm having good deep sleep since keto 9 months ago. So important. And yes, thank you for bringing that up. Keto can help improve a lot of these things that I just talked about. It will improve your sleep, just like it did for Renee. It can actually help make you more calm, because when you have adequate levels of fat from the ketogenic approach, it actually feeds your brain properly. So maybe that stress, you're able to handle stress better. Maybe you're able to come off of some of those medications because of keto. And then some of the hormonal imbalances can start to fix themselves as you get insulin under control. That's the master hormone over all of the hormones. And so perhaps keto can help with all of those things. But if all of those things are still out of kilter, even while you are keto, you may still have trouble. So you got to kind of get all of those things under control as well. Devin Marie 13 says, my doctor prescribed me metformin for my PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It made me incredibly sick, and I gained 5 pounds in the 3 months that I took it. Now 3 months of keto and I'm down 42 pounds. Yeah, metformin is notorious for being hard on the stomach, which is why a lot of the formulations of metformin, which is a decent drug, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of drugs at all, but if you're gonna take one and you have pretty significant type 2 diabetes or PCOS, which is a form of insulin resistance that leads to type 2 diabetes, it's probably not a bad one, but they didn't give you the right one, Marie. They should have given you one that had a buffer on it, and it's that buffer that makes it where it's not quite so hard on your stomach. Barnyard Coffee, you're better than a trip to my doctor. Thank you. Don't worry, I know you're not a doctor. No, I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on Instagram Live or YouTube or on Apple Podcasts. Low Carb High Fat Fellow says, or fella, sorry, keto is a key element to address nutritional deficiencies. However, the emotional and mental challenges also need to be addressed when working through a lifestyle change. Yes, all of that is related to a lot of the things that I just talked about in this Jimmy Rants. Barnyard Coffee, I've been dealing with stomach problems, digestive, for 13 years, and when I started to deal with the stress, it all magically got better. But keto has also helped with the stomach issues. And see, I think it's one of those, it's gonna help, but sometimes in the interim before it has helped, you kind of need to try to dial in some of those things. I'll give you a prime example of something that has nothing at all to do with diet, and yet had a profound impact on Christine's health. So Christine, many years ago, she was taking a medication, Paxil, to help with panic attacks and some other kind of things that were going on. And so she would take that, and she took it for a decade, you guys, because the doctor said, well, you've got out of, your brain's out of chemistry, and you've got to kind of get it under control with this medication. Never once did he say, maybe you have a nutrient deficiency, maybe there's something going on. And so when we finally got a doctor to run her vitamin D level, it came back at an anemic 9, you guys. That's an obscenely low level of vitamin D. And so we put her on 10,000 IU of vitamin D a day for about 6 months, and she got it from 9 to about 52 or 3. Magically, this Paxil that she had taken for over a decade at that point, she got to come off of because she wasn't having the panic attacks anymore. And so then when she tried to go into a state of ketosis after that, it was very easy. And yet that medication probably would have disrupted. And all of the high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb in the world would not have fixed that vitamin D deficiency. So you got to look at the underlying issues that are going on, you guys, and realize it's so much more than just about the foods that you're putting in your mouth. That's it for this Jimmy Rants. Reminder, being keto is about so much more than just your diet. So keep that in mind when you go along this ketogenic journey, and pass the word, you guys. Tell people to go to jimmyrants.com. Connect with me on Instagram Live, and you can talk with me like all these wonderful people did here today. And then watch it for 24 hours on the replay, and then pop over to YouTube if you missed it, and you can see all my past episodes of Jimmy Rants, and then the all-new iTunes podcast, which is on all the podcast formats. jimmyrants.com is where you have all of that under one roof. So thanks for watching, you guys, and until next time, we'll see you then.